69.
Why is that your favorite number, Doc? Is there something you want to tell us? What? Oh, we're
Yes.
moving on because we're live.
I'm a single woman with no life. Hence why I'm always here.
Our benefit then. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So without further ado, we have two guests we'd like to introduce you to today. We're going to start with Mr. Jim Curtis. Can you introduce yourself to our listening audience?
Good evening, afternoon, whatever the hell it is. I write under J.L. Curtis. I'm an old-retired Navy Mustang, naval flight officer, and I've got a few stories.
All right. And next we have Mr. Law Dog, which is the most unique name we've had come on this show. I presume you actually publish under that, correct?
I do. I publish under Law Dog. I am a recently retired Texas peace officer, 80s era U.S. military, and didn't set foot for longer than a month in the States till I was 16.
Interesting. Where were you when you weren't in the States?
West Africa, Southeast Africa, Northwest Africa, and points in between.
I'm noticing a theme here, though.
What's that?
I am. I'm
Africa.
picking up what you're laying down.
Yes. In the 70s, my father was an oil engineer, and he went where the oil was.
That'll do it. I'm surprised he didn't make it into Saudi Arabia.
He hated Saudi.
So
that's understandable. They don't allow booze.
That would be problematic for me. So when you said that you were a peace officer, does that mean you were like a Texas Ranger? Because I think I saw that movie.
No, deputy sheriff. Rangers, whole different.
You could have said yes. That would have been cool.
We could have had an entirely new kind of ranger on the show, which would have driven Nick crazy for not being here.
That would have actually been, we ought to find one of those that writes just for that reason.
We know one.
But all right, so Leg Lives Matter. That's right, they do. So why did you pick Law Dog as your name instead of just a generic moniker? I get you have to protect your identity because you're a law enforcement career, but why go for that as opposed to, I don't know, Cisca Small or something?
At the time, I wasn't a writer at the time. At the time, I was a moderator for the Firing Line and later the High Road. And okay. I moderated under Law Dog because, it's better than, Noob Owner 69. And my first stories came out of the stories I told on those forums. And when I finally got around to publishing them, I realized that nobody in the internet knew who I was other than Law Dog. And if I were to try publishing them under my real name, I wouldn't get it. Nobody'd read them.
I can understand that.
Okay.
And you were the 8th person off the High Road and the Firing Line to be a published author.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So what is the High Road and the Firing Line? What are those?
That was a gun forum back in the 90s.
90s and early 80s. The Firing Line was the first one, and it was one of the finest, well-moderated bulletin boards out there for guns.
And he's patting himself on the back for that one.
I had the legal and political board. That was bloody awful. And the owner was very, very, very clear about there would be no shenanigans, and we were kind of ruthless about it.
Yeah, I was also on it under old NFO. A few other folks that were members.
Larry Correa. Correa 45.
I was going to ask about that.
When Larry was in college.
Yes.
I think I remember James Cochran talking about it a couple times.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was a member named Nightcrawler who turned out to be Mike Cooper.
Yeah.
It was internet and guns, so of course James had to be there.
Yeah. Peter Grant was on it.
He was the preacher man, and Cornered Rat was Oleg Volk.
Yep.
Well, there you go, guys.
And
I just won't tell you what I was doing in the 90s, and we'll move on.
I won't tell you because I'd get yelled at. I can tell you what I was doing in the 90s. I was reading Anne McCaffrey, David Weber, Mercedes Lackey, Anne Wright, Elizabeth Ann Scarborough, Elizabeth Moon.
I mean, that works. I was mostly dodging detention and trying to get with the girls, but high school and elementary school will do that to you in the 90s. So,
Wow.
Comment.
I'm just going to get the jack all by Walter.
Hey, I'm the oldest one here. Both of you, all of you, shut up. Jeez.
well, I'm
Get off my
I'm
lawn.
old enough. Ryan, I was about to say I'm old enough I can shake my fist at the sky and yell at the kids to get off my lawn. So I've succumbed. I've come. I don't know. Whatever. All right. So the second part of the introduction, dear listener, is how we first found them. And so this is the second interview we've done from the Can't Go Home Again anthology. So like the last time, if you want the more full answer, listen to the first interview too. But I first heard of this anthology from Krista Note, who I met through the Galaxy's Edge fan club, and the rest, as they say, is history. But it sounds like, Doc, you have history with these people. So can you tell us how you found Jim Curtis and Law Dog?
Well, you see, up in Chattanooga, there's this beautiful convention called LibertyCon, and that is where I met these gentlemen. So, but JR, I understand we'd redirected them, but just in case you either listened or you don't want to go, the central theme of Can't Go Home is very important and near and dear to, I think, many of our listeners, but definitely everybody here, because the central theme of Can't Go Home is that it is stories of hope of dealing with PTSD.
Yes.
And that is a huge killer among veterans. And it's not just killing the veterans, but it's also killing some of their lifestyle, as well as other people. You don't have to be a vet to have PTSD and identify with these stories.
Responders are getting it bad.
Yeah.
First responders, people who have been in life-changing in a negative way circumstances can all identify with these stories. And so, in many of the proceeds, several of the authors in this have committed to donating their proceeds of their portion of the royalties to the Mission 22 anthology, which is specifically to help vets with PTSD and suicide prevention. So I think Jim Curtis is one, Christopher Denote, and Christopher said he'd match out of his own personal funds whatever was raised by selling the book.
Well done.
Yeah, if it made #1 on Amazon, and it did.
Yes,
but this one is also available wide. It's not just through Amazon, guys.
Yeah.
So, and
we know that Doc has her love affair with Bezos.
I do not have a love affair with Bezos. I haven't divorced him yet, but I do have a love affair with Barnes & Noble.
All right. Well, we were going to get to that when we introduced the book. But before we do that, Doc, we got to introduce the guests. See, we've got a structure. We got to get to know the guests, get to know them as nerds, then as writers. Then we talk about the
sorry. My mommy juice derailed my structure.
You were just a little premature. It happens to all of us as we get older.
As women, we don't call it premature. We just call it multiple times.
All right, moving on. So ask them the religion question. And if they sound familiar, it's because we're going to ask all of the ones from this anthology the same set.
Ender's Game, Edge of Tomorrow, or Starship Troopers. Pick one of them, gentlemen.
Ender's Game.
Jim first. Oh, okay.
How about you, Law Dog?
What?
Book or movie?
Either.
Your call, or both.
Book, Starship Troopers.
The book or the movie?
Okay.
Book.
He said book. I like both for different reasons.
You just like the shower scene in Starship Troopers.
The same story, so you can't pick both.
Yeah.
It's two different stories.
Though,
so I actually found Heinlein from the movie, which I loved, is because I love campy, cheap, crappy movies. And I remember thinking, because I was talking about it when I was in ROTC in high school, but to the instructor, I said, yeah, but they used zero tactics. It's like they all just mass charged in waves like they were the Chinese in in Korean War or something. And it's, because you got to read the book. And so I read the book, and it wasn't what I expected, because I expected an action thriller, and the book is more like a political treatise meets his worldview on philosophy and all the things. There was some action in it, but not a lot.
No.
See, my mother made me read the book, but I will say, as a female soldier, watching the movie and how the women interacted in the infantry unit with other men as basically just, oh yeah, I happen to have a set of ovaries, really did form a lot of my opinion of how I wanted to be perceived as a soldier.
Yep.
There is that.
Oh, there's surprising depths in Cisca tonight.
No, that's not a bad answer.
So
yeah, I just like the campy action and killing the bugs. I'm not that deep.
I will admit,
I'm the
anytime
shallow
I
end of
kill
the
a big
pond.
bug, all I can think of is that logo. You know, the motto.
Do you want to know
movie.
more?
The only dead bug is a dead bug, and I literally squish them and go, die, die, bug.
As you should. I approve.
So
Peter will not, but they can send the hate mail to Cisca.
What?
Yeah. I was just say, PETA can send the hate mail to Cisca at blastersandbladespodcast.com.
Why would people eating tasty animals be sending hate mail?
Well, I actually in high school formed Pet P as my own organization. It's People for the Ethical Treatment of Plants. They have feelings too, you know.
Okay.
I got kicked out of class for that t-shirt. I don't know why. Doc, ask him the fantasy religion question.
So Dragonheart, Aragon, or Dungeons and Dragons the movie?
Dungeons and Dragons the movie.
Yes!
Considering I've not seen any of them, I'd have to say, beats the hell out of me.
Well, Aragon is just Star Wars' show numbers fouled off, which annoys me.
Shh! I won't tell Christopher Polanyi you said that.
I didn't even know till she set this question up that there was the Dungeons and Dragons movie. So I'm both horrified and curious to Google this and see if it's on Netflix.
You like campy movies? You will love it.
There's actually a better one.
You know what? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a better one. I'm trying to remember the hell the name of it is. It's small. It's campy. Small group of gamers. Darkness Rising.
I've heard of it.
Gamers. Darkness Rising. That's the one you should be watching.
I will add this to the list. In fact, Doc, it will go on the movies we potentially review as an episode.
Ooh.
All right, but we will write that down for later. So we here at the Blasters and Blades podcast like both the fantastical and the scientific. So what was your first love, sci-fi or fantasy? You get to go first, Law Dog.
That's going to be hard because my first actual fiction love was Edgar Rice Burroughs' Princess of Mars. So is it fiction? Was it science fiction? Is it fantasy? Good question.
I don't know.
I mean, they had tech that was futuristic, so I would call it sci-fi.
Swords.
True, but I mean they had swords in Star Wars, and that's sci-fi-ish.
Star Wars is space.
So we'll call it space fantasy. We'll call that space fantasy too.
Yeah, Edgar Rice Burroughs was my first love.
That works for me. What about you, Jim?
Heinlein and E. Doc Smith, Arthur C. Clarke. So hard.
So yours would definitely. So, what's your first memory of engaging in speculative fiction as a genre? Was it watching it on the TV, reading books, playing games? Where did you discover the genre? We're gonna Jim this time. You first.
Books. When I was about 10 or 11.
Do you remember the very first one?
Or an early one? How about an early one?
Hell, that was 60 years ago. You expect me to remember that?
Yes, because you're not really that old.
I didn't know that papyrus lasted that long.
Oh, shut up.
No, it was stone tablets that they used back then.
I would have to say probably Heinlein.
Okay.
Because the
was it his juveniles or his adult fiction?
Probably the juvenile. Because Arthur C. Clarke and Doc Smith didn't really write juvenile. I didn't hit them until I was probably 11 or 12.
Okay. Still an early reader and an early adapter, so we approve. All right, what about you, Law Dog? What was your first memory of engaging in speculative fiction?
Warri, Nigeria, and it was a worn copy of Alfred Bester's The Star Is My Destination.
Okay, very specific. You passed the test. You get a cookie. All right,
But you're
Doc.
not gonna get 200
Next
bucks
question
out of
is
it,
you.
Well, he actually doesn't pay anybody. He just deducts their pay and hopes that they forget that they don't get paid.
Yeah, still one of my favorite. It was the first science fiction book I ever read, and it's still one of my favorite books to this day.
Which is?
Stars My Destination.
Okay. I will have to check that one out.
I think I read it when I was 9 or 10. It's very sparse. Alfred Bester was almost, he was very sparse, but every bit of cyberpunk that today owes a great debt of gratitude to Stars My Destination.
Well, then we'll definitely have to check that one out.
You might find it under Tiger. It published in England under Tiger.
Okay. So, because we've talked a bunch to the cyberpunk community. They're really awesome people. But we're here to talk about you guys. So what is it that you love about speculative fiction as a genre? Which one of you wants to go first?
I guess I'll jump on that one. Jump on that hand grenade.
Oh, that sounds weird.
Yeah. It's I tend to write hard science fiction. So with my background, I've had access to some things a lot of people haven't. So I'm actually able to put that in the science fiction and still make it believable. But the other thing about science fiction is you don't get bogged down in reality per se, because you're not thinking about, oh, I was there, or oh, I saw this, or oh, that's a bad location, or oh, that place doesn't exist. In speculative fiction, none of it exists. And yeah, there are going to be people that'll, you really should have gone in and figured out the Hoban transfer better because you missed this.
Yeah. Eat a bowl of.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. No. I love it when I listen to people who do that to like Anne McCaffrey stories, and I'm like, you do realize that she was using the science of the time. Yes, we now know more.
Yeah. That annoys me.
Yeah. So
Well,
now, how about you, Law Dog? What is it that you love about this genre?
Oh, I grew up in Africa in the 70s, early 80s.
That was an interesting time to be there.
Yes. Revolution of the Week. I tell folks the first time I was shot at with intent, I was 2 years old.
I can believe it. They must have known you.
Exactly. Fun times. And then I turned around when I got out of the military. I became a cop. And I've seen all of the myriad 10,000 ways man can be inhumane to man.
Yeah.
And I can pick up a book and be transported away.
Go somewhere nicer?
Not necessarily nicer, but not here, and somewhere with hope. Because to quote a famous man, people are bastard covered bastards with bastard coating and bastard filling. And I can pick up even Dune, for God's sake, has hope in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does. It has hope where, it's not this nasty, it's not Africa in the 70s. It's not taking down the door in a meth house or anything else. I can pick up a book and it's different and it's glorious and there's possibilities there.
And it's just fun.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
how did your love of science fiction or speculative fiction actually transition into writing stories in this world? I think I asked Jim answered first last time. Does he want to go first, or are we going to let Law Dog go first?
Lead on.
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome.
What was the question again?
How did your love of speculative fiction eventually lead into you writing speculative fiction?
I wanted to write stories of hope. You get done with a 12-hour shift and you don't want to watch the crap TV. Oh, look, it's Kardashians. Yay. I wanted to transport people, give them hope, give them fantastic worlds to get lost in, just like I got. So I wanted to write worlds that would transport people and uplift people and all the good stuff.
Okay.
How about
That
you,
is
Jim?
actually part of the. Hold on.
Hmm?
That reasoning is part of the reason the VA teaches classes on writing as therapy, because something about like venting your woes onto a page
Yep.
and going happier places helps people. Same reason they get people into gardening. So that fits.
That's why I write funny stories.
Yeah.
All right, Doc. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I probably missed
No,
your
I
turn.
messed. Fix it.
You
I
just
don't
kicked
know what
yourself
I'm
off the street.
doing.
Doc, I
Don't
should have
give
given
me-
you the power.
No, you should have given me the power. You just should have given me some training to go with it. But since you did the same thing the army did, you're stuck with what you got, just like they did.
What kind of training? Army training, sir.
So,
All right, Doc.
This
Try to
place
save
sucks.
yourself.
Let's live here.
many authors draw from their own world experiences, but were there any formidable moments that really shaped who you became as a storyteller? We'll start with Jim, and then we'll ask Law Dog.
Well, I guess what I did for a living was part of it. I couldn't afford the bar bills, and I don't sleep on airplanes. And I was traveling about 200 days a year all over the world doing R&D for the Navy. And I was in the firing line and then the high road. And then I looked around one day in there, and a couple of people had gotten published. And I went, wait a friggin' minute. I can do this. So my first book was a series of short stories, oddly enough titled Vignettes. And I had submitted it for to a number of publishers, and got told that in one particular refusal that even if I vanity pressed it, I would never sell 200 copies in my lifetime. And I went, challenge accepted.
Wow, did that person know how to motivate you?
Yeah, I've sold about 5,000 of them so far. But,
I really hope that person's eating their crow pie.
Well, that was a letter that I burned very cheerfully. Trust me.
Oh, I do.
I might have kept a copy just to mail it to them, and then a statement of royalties that you've earned.
If I had thought about it, I probably would have, JR, but I was so pissed. It was
Yeah. But that's where, like, also, the entire concept of ebooks, now I could see somebody really thinking they could do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, indie publishing and the ability to do ebooks versus having to use a physical book has made it so that that's much more doable.
Oh yeah, I am a benefactor of ebooks, no question. I mean, I put out paperbacks too, but my sales ratio is probably 90 to 10. I'll sell 90 ebooks for every 10 paperbacks I sell.
I think a lot of authors,
Probably about standard.
even those who are traditionally published, find that today. Well, okay. Given the last year we had, that kind of skewed the numbers.
Well,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Except for Barnes and Noble, by the way, JR, who likes to rag on them, they still kept their stores going for online order and pick up at the curb all through the pandemic.
That's because their website is still circa 1950.
Yeah.
But
I'd still like to go buy my
don't
books
wanna-
and not have an algorithm show them to me.
yes, but I read digitally for reasons, so
'Cause
I
you're
don't need to go to a store for that. But
special.
all right, I've been told that before. Did everybody answer their formidable moments, or did we just get the one? Because I distract everybody and sidetrack.
It happens. Africa is a very verbal culture. In the 70s, there was the TV would come on for an hour every night, and there was one episode of Skippy the Kangaroo that played on loop.
Oh dear God.
Oh God, yes. And then the company my father worked for hired combat veterans because the company was exclusively in Africa. So the owner of the company decided that folks that had already been in combat could handle Africa a little better than some poor newbie right out of school. So
You know what? Saudi Arabia did that. Aramco Oil used to do that too. They hired mostly military vets.
They got the idea from NL Bayreuth.
Okay.
So I grew up around a whole bunch of Vietnam vets and Omani War British veterans and bushfire veterans and military veterans around the world, especially combat veterans, have a very verbal culture.
Yeah.
There are a lot of storytelling.
A lot of 4-letter words too.
Oh,
I love how he's like, it's a verbal culture.
It's very. I used to have to take a month before we came home and sanitize my language because my mother's parents were deacons.
Oh yeah.
So I grew up with all these military vets that told stories and around all these tribal folks that told stories, and telling stories just came naturally.
It works. All right. So, speaking of military service, since we talked about that in the intro, we ask all of our veterans who are also, all of our authors who are also veterans this question, but how do you feel like your time in uniform affects the stories you tell? Go with you, Law Dog.
It's given me several very funny stories to tell and a whole bunch of deniable stuff. But yeah, my time in the Army lied to me. I know that's going to be a surprise to a whole bunch of people.
No.
But they lied pretty hard because my 18-year-old self went into the recruiter and he promised to get me back to Africa because I wanted to go home. And lying bastard never got me any further than Fort Hood, which is like 4 hours south of here.
Dude, mine never got me any further than Bliss.
Yeah, but still. So I didn't form a lot of fraternal attachments. I went in the Army, scary, angry young man, and came out a scary, angry, achy, slightly older man. And,
well, you were dumb enough to jump out of airplanes for fun and profit.
He told me I'd get laid. Again, he lied.
Yeah.
Hey, the one thing my grandfather told me, okay, he told me two things of three things of wisdom. One of them backfired. One is, if you're going to jump out of an airplane, do it on the government's dime.
Well, point.
2, never argue with an angry NCO. And 3, don't ever get stationed at Fort Bliss. Fucker, that was my duty station.
So, wow. I remember when I enlisted in the Guard, my recruiter telling me that don't worry, you'll never get deployed. In 1998, CNN ran a piece that world peace might finally be attainable. And my recruiter insisted that the Guard would only be deployed after the Boy Scouts and the Ladies Auxiliary had been called up.
He lied to you.
He was wrong. Yeah, so I
my
did it.
Recruiter
of course,
was, one second. My recruiter was right. I overheard him telling my mom, don't worry. The chances of her being a line medic are very small. And because that's all I wanted to be. Fucker. I'm still angry.
Not that you're still bitter.
Not bitter.
And they promised me
I'm not bitter. I'm just black coffee in my soul.
So that's the one thing they forgot to mention as a line item on the See the World is that everywhere they would send me to see would be people would hate me for being there and want to shoot me and kill me.
I thought that's
I was
just
picturing like tropical climate.
Well,
it's possible, but I was thinking See the World like I'd get to go to Germany and see cool stuff, or I don't know, Hawaii and surf with the dolphins or something. And no, they send me to a desert to get shot at.
Yeah.
For 2.5 years.
At least you got paid for it. I was in the desert getting shot at and not getting paid for it.
This is true. At least I got blood money. All right, so Law Dog, what about you? How do you feel like your time in the service affects the stories you tell?
I just answered that.
He answered it. My turn.
He answered.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I distract myself even. It's bad.
No, you just can't tell them apart.
Ouch.
Well, my career basically runs from Vietnam to the first Gulf War, and I was in both of them. So that definitely impacts. Even though I was in aviation, primarily flying long-range patrol aircraft. But the pluses and minuses, I've been all over the world, literally. And I've seen the third world in action. I've seen communism up close and personal. Yeah. And in the Navy, we did a thing called HADR, which was basically when we deployed, we deployed for 6 months at a time. And we would normally go to a base somewhere to fly out of: Philippines, Japan, Iceland, Bermuda, lodges, Guam, various other places, Sigonella, Sicily.
Fucking Fort Hood.
Sorry. And we would take on a project. Usually it was an orphanage. That was kind of the thing that we liked to do. We would find a local orphanage, and there are a hell of a lot of them outside the U.S., trust me. And we would go in and basically spend probably 4,000 to 5,000 man hours helping them rebuild stuff, paint stuff, fix the place up, get it wired. We had a corpsman that in a couple of the squadrons and a doc that spent most of their time at the orphanages trying to get the kids better. Healthcare is nowhere near what we have in the U.S., even as bad as it is today. So that kind of impacted quite a bit. And then with what I did in the military, I got to go places and do things basically on my own. One crew, one airplane deaths all over the world. And back in the 80s, a junior officer could still be an officer in charge, which, don't happen today. So I've been as far north as the North Pole and as far south as New Zealand, Christchurch, New Zealand, and pretty much everywhere in between. Got the shit scared out of me more than once, got shot at a few times, participated in a few things that will never be written about, and some that have been. But yeah, it affects my writing. I don't write about the military per se, because I really don't want to go to Leavenworth.
We would like you to stay right where you are, having fun, writing amazing stories. Just saying.
Yeah,
You go to that.
you and me both.
So that's the one thing I will say, that, and I think anyone that's in their time in service saw the rest of the world, visited other countries. I don't think most Americans realize quite what a bubble they live in, that the rest of the world does not.
Oh, hell no, they don't even come
protections
close.
and freedoms.
Well, bearing in mind that until I was 16, I would spend 1 month out of every year stateside. The rest of the time, I was in Africa. And people in America, even to now, annoy the absolute way out of me sometimes. Oh my God, we have it so bad. No.
Yeah.
I've seen a woman doing calculations on which child to sell in order to feed the rest of them.
Yep.
So suck down your soy mocha latte, get off your damn iPhone, and shut the hell up.
Yep.
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, I will admit,
You do not want to get me started.
getting off the iPhone helps a lot, because that thing sucks you in like an intellectual black hole.
Well, what I want to know is
Yeah,
where
but Androids are confusing.
Are all these goddamn panhandlers getting iPhones? Or are these Obama phones?
I don't care. I really don't care.
When a panhandler's got a better phone than I have, I got a problem with it.
Well, let's face it, Jim. Our poor people live better
than 90% of the world.
The rich people in 90% of the world.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me in the least. What surprises me is the fact that they have the nerve to get their panties in a bunch over their perceived injustices.
Yeah.
Well, there are some things. America's not perfect. There are some things we can definitely work on changing. But today we're here to talk about Can't Go Home.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I love my country too. We have some flaws though. And
everybody
but
does.
today we're here to talk about that.
Humans are flawed. That's a simple way of it.
We all are. Some more than others.
Jared, did you
do you
talk
ever draw? No, I got the next one. I just didn't want to interrupt. Yeah.
See,
so
I'm
do
used
you
to
ever draw on people? Jim, do you ever draw from people that you knew while you were in the military?
All of my characters are composites. Contrary to some of the emails that I've gotten, no, it was not your daddy. You laugh. You saw that.
I'd be really worried if it was my daddy.
But yeah, I do composites. There are certain people that may or may not end up in novels. Or certain situations.
What about you, Law Dog?
You scrub the serial numbers off well enough.
I don't do people from the military that much. I do tropes from the military.
Yeah.
The tropes from the military make a good base for a character.
Which tropes are you speaking of for people that might not be familiar?
Okay, the
And
grouchy,
who can't do math?
the grouchy first sergeant, the disappearing warrant officer, the clueless second lieutenant. I hate second lieutenants.
Miscreant E4s.
Miscreant E4s. Oh God, miscreant E4s.
Hey.
So far, you haven't said anything that wasn't just factual.
Yes, but each one of those is a wonderful trope you can work into a character.
Yeah, and remember, you got the 212 things Skippy can't do in the Army anymore too.
Yeah, well, I know that I'm secretly their favorite and E4, so.
So the other part of that is just because of the nature of when I served, because like I said, I went in 98 and I was out in 07, is I was the tail end of the old 80s era Cold War veterans getting out. So like my platoon sergeant in Iraq was a non-vet. I deployed with people that literally got the go to war or go to jail speech when they got arrested the first time.
Oh, yeah.
They were at so I mean, I don't think that even happens anymore, at least not officially. Although small towns are going to small town.
1996. I picked up a young man for his second shot at thumping his mama, on top of multiple misdemeanor ticketed marijuana offenses. And the sheriff and I drove him into Amarillo, and we pulled up outside the recruitment center. The young man said, "What am I supposed to do?" And the sheriff said, "Enlist." And he said, "No." And the sheriff said, "No, I'll beat your ass out here until you enlist." And he went in and enlisted. And 8 years later, he came home. He'd done 4 years in the Marines and 4 years in college, and was making a very good go of it. And it pointed out that we had violated his constitutional rights under the 13th Amendment, no slavery. And the sheriff said, "And your point is?"
Well, he got paid.
Yeah, sort of.
I mean, it's not really. That's not actually the constitutional right that you violated, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, JR.
Barrack's lawyer got a barracks lawyer.
Yeah, JR. You talk about serving with Vietnam vets. My command master chief was a World War II aviation pilot.
So he was Army Air Corps.
No, he was Navy.
Well, you were Navy, so
Navy enlisted pilot. Flew in VF-3 off the original Enterprise. Yeah, he was slightly crusty.
One of my babysitting uncles when I was 6 years old was named Chuck, Uncle Chuck. And my father was fond of saying that not all of Chuck came back from Vietnam.
Yeah.
And my folks came home from party one night and discovered that Uncle Chuck was teaching my brother and I the proper method of sensory removal with a knife. And my dad went, All right, and went to bed. My mom lost her poo.
I was about to say, what's wrong with that? I mean, that's just good uncling right there.
Dad went, okay. Mom went, why are you teaching my children to knife a century? And Chuck looked at her and said, because they might have to.
Yeah.
Okay, you see, this is how different the role reversal in my family is, because my dad would have been the one flipping out, and my mom would be going, just make sure you know which side of the line they're on and go to bed.
Okay, role reversal. My mother was the one that taught her 8-year-old sons how to make nitrogen triiodide.
Yeah.
Dude, I like your mom. Okay, other than the entire freaking out about the getting rid of the century thing, I like your mom already.
And the black powder when we were trying to
build. I may or may not have taught my Viking child how to make a fireball.
I think I'm adopting all of
you. They left me alone with him.
I mean, in your defense, they left you without adult supervision. So does your time in the service affect the way you engage with stories, be they written, TV, etc., as a reader, not as a writer? Jim, does you think your time in the military affects how you engage in content?
Oh yeah, very much so. And I guess the two biggest reasons is that I'll wall a book is the perfect character, which I hate, and when they do the weapons or tactics wrong.
It has to be period correct. Has to be period correct.
Okay.
Wait 1 second. I like what he said is period correct.
Yep.
Because that's very important. Because things do change over time in the military.
Well, they change over time everywhere, Cisca.
I understand that, but I've listened to people who rant and rave, and I'm like, but for the time period it was in, that actually makes sense, guys. Come on.
When I was in high speed low drag, you had a M16 with a Seymour forward mounted heads up or red dot sight. And if I'm watching high speed low drag guys allegedly in 1980 Cold War, late Cold War military, and I see them using a C clamp and C clamp firing platform and gear that's way out, and they do it all the time and it annoys the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And we chicken winged. When we were firing the M16s, we chicken winged it. That's what we did.
Yep,
we
that's the way you were taught.
We had an idiot heel to toe Groucho Marx advance when firing.
Yeah,
but guys in the 2000, 2010s did it totally different.
Yeah.
So if I'm reading something or watching something that's set in one period and they're doing stuff in another period, you have no idea how bad that annoys me.
But that's what I mean. It's important for the readers to understand and our listeners to get that.
Yeah.
That's an important.
One thing people don't factor in. One thing people don't factor in when it comes to tactics is how much of it's a yin and a yang call and response to what the other guy's doing. So you develop defensive tactics as they develop offensive tactics and vice versa. So when everyone started wearing the flak jackets, you went from a side silhouette profile because it makes you harder to hit because there's less of you exposed to front facing, which gave you that weird crab walk in a hunched back because you were trying to put your body armor forward because if you're going to get hit, let the plate stop it. And so when I see, that's one of the things you can tell.
The folks I was up against, both prior and during military, were Soviet Socialist Republic trained. It was basically KGB surrogates with Russian or Soviet military doctrine training.
Yep.
The ones you were up against were a bunch of insurgents with Iranian. We got this from Hollywood or Bollywood training.
Yeah,
and that changes the whole dynamics of the situation.
They got some in China.
Well, in their defense, I did see their training video, and they did monkey bars.
So, yeah, everybody's seen that.
Yes, I laughed for.
So Law Dog, did you weigh in on how it affects how you engage in content, your military service?
Yes, very much so. If I see something set in the 80s It better have 80s doctrine and everything. Also,
I just making sure.
and also it's the roles.
Yes.
If I've got some E4 smartassing a major in a book or a movie, well, we're done with that one.
I will admit I did read one book and it was very funny, and it was a very similar circumstance. Junior enlisted soldier smart mousing about a mid-rank officer, and it was glorious watching what happened
Smarting
next.
about or smarting to?
Smarting too, and it was glorious what happened next in the book, and I giggled and laughed so hard.
That doesn't bother me but it's, I read one the other day. Well, I partially read one. It's somewhere behind the couch right now, because it had something about E4 smartassing a major and a major taking it.
No.
It's like,
well,
okay, one second. I will say this as an E4, I did occasionally say some things where people just looked at me and they could not, and I was told later they couldn't decide if I was smart mouthing them or not. Because as you both have seen, I can have a very deadpan delivery.
Oh yeah, But it's like,
So the trick is
the next sentence better have a CSM ripping a strip off that E4.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes if it happens, the major generally will be nice because he knows he's got the sergeant major, the first sergeant, whoever that's going to come up behind and take that guy behind the woodshed. There's going to be a little bit of wall-to-wall counseling, and noses might be bloody, but lessons will be learned.
It's okay. It builds character.
Yes.
That's what they told me when they thumped me around.
That's what I told my son when he was crying into his vegetable stew that he didn't had vegetables.
I saw that back in the 70s where literally E7 took his khaki shirt off and said, "All right, let's go out behind the line shack," and went out and beat an E5 into the ground and said, "Now, you want to go back to work or you want me to write you up?" And E5's laying there going, "Hey, work."
This us.
Yeah, we never, and that was it.
Command Sergeant Major reached out and grabbed the PFC's entire face.
Yeah.
And just line pitched him down the parade ground. It's like, oh, that boy done screwed up.
Yeah.
He must have had his hands in his pocket and walked on the grass.
One more example. James Young.
Colonel Young?
Yeah.
Yeah. James Young. Yes.
Colonel Young.
Yeah, Colonel Young. I wrote a short story for him for one of his anthologies. And he came back and mentioned that I had made a mistake on the aircraft that I was using. And I sent him an email back and I said, "James, I realize you're a PhD in history, but I was there. I know what airplanes were flying out of both locations. And it was this and this." And I get this frowny face back and he goes, "Well, shit." And that was the end of editing on my story.
There we go.
So yeah, attention to detail.
Doc. All right, we get to dive into the individual story. So question 14 is you, Doc.
Wait, this is fandom question, JR. Not individual stories. So.
Oh, I jumped the gun, but still 14. Okay, I can do the math. All right. Ish.
I don't think your alma mater taught very good math, but we'll go on.
Two, many more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
fingers and toes.
Has anyone asked for your autograph
from the? I was gonna say I learned my math from the Tootsie Roll Owl. 1, 2, 3.
Say again, Cisca.
All right, Doc, I'll shut up.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so has anybody asked for your autograph away from? Has anybody asked for your autograph?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, got a funny story about it?
They had to scrape me off the ceiling. It was my first LibertyCon, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, first LibertyCon. And I'm twitchy around crowds. Badly twitchy.
Yes.
I'm twitchy around people, period. And the conovers showed up. And I love the conovers. warrant officers, military intelligence, great folks, and Mrs. Conover squeed. And
Oh dear God, that would scare me too.
Yeah, and she wanted and I gave her my first ever autograph. And then
that's so
I
sweet.
went to the bar and slammed 3 old fashions in a row,
Damn, nice.
trying to get my hands to stop
Wait,
shaking.
wait. Was that when we were in the choo choo?
That was
Yep.
wearing the choo choo.
Yeah.
Okay, so what year was that?
2016? Hell, I don't remember.
2016, I think.
Oh, dude, I was probably the one pouring you the old fashioned.
Were you wearing a blue lace bustier?
We will not talk about what I wear at cons.
If
I
so,
think that was a yes.
if so, she was pouring the booze.
Yeah.
And I was in a corner slamming booze, trying to get my hands to stop shaking.
Yes, I remember that, I think, actually. So how about you, Law Dog?
That was Law Dog.
Oh, sorry. Never having me do it now. Jim, how about you? Please help me.
I forgot the damn question.
Do you have a cool story about having somebody asking for your autograph?
Yeah, kind of. I was actually driving down the highway, driving down I-95, and somebody recognized my license plate. And
that doesn't sound stalkerish at all.
I pulled into a rest area in North Carolina, matter of fact, just north of Fort Bragg. And this guy gets out of the car, comes over and goes, "Are you old NFO?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He goes, "Hang on a second." And he runs back and pulls a copy of vignettes out of the car and comes over and goes, "Would you sign this?" Sure. How the hell did you? He says, and then he told me who he was, and I forget now. But he was on the high road in the firing line.
You recognize old NFO?
Yeah.
You got vanity plates, which is why I never have vanity plates.
Yeah. Well, that was why I could find a car in a damn parking lot in D.C.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't do it because I don't believe in giving the government that much extra money, but
Now, I've had some funny interactions with some of my readers though.
So, have you spotted anybody reading any of your books out in the wild?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, which book, guys? Come on, Mr. Yes, no questions. Come on, we're an hour into this. You can't change your MO now.
The first one I published was Law Dog Files. It was a collection of short stories, funny short stories from law enforcement career. And I had written a story in there about a female DA that I crossed with while I was chasing a meth hound. She ran in the women's bathroom, and I ran in after her, not realizing it was women's bathroom in the courthouse. And as I was kicking open stalls, I kicked open stall, and here's the lady DA. And she pointed, and I went off after her. It was a bad time. I wrote about that, and 8 years later, I was going to the DA's office of a warrant and looked into the office where this lady DA in that story, that was her office, and she's sitting there reading a copy of my book.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you're about to get chapter 14. That's going to be bad. I'm out of here.
Yeah. How about you?
I was down at Quantico, down in the exchange down there. Went down there and grabbed something to eat. And was in a little food court and looked over, and a guy had my second book in my first series, and he was reading it. And it was like, damn, I'm impressed. And it was a Marine Staff Sergeant. Now, I did not have the guts to go over and introduce myself.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah, don't interrupt them.
What?
Don't interrupt a Marine NCO. Okay, so what is your funniest story of a fan interaction? Jim, we'll let Law Dog sort through what he's got.
All right. There are probably two. One is a 70-year-old lady out in West Texas. Now, you have to understand, my first series was a niche series. It was written to make sure the guns were all right and the characters were imperfect.
Okay.
So I get this email from this 70-year-old lady out in West Texas who goes, "You son of a bitch, you killed my favorite character. Why did you kill Juanita?" And I went, what the hell do I say? You know, I had to.
It worked for the story?
Huh?
It worked for the story?
Yeah. She has become one of my biggest fans and one of my alpha readers.
Wonderful.
Another one is a gent who went online, you used Google Earth to see if there really was a dumpster behind the bank in Fort Stockton, Texas.
Oh, dear heavens.
And sent me a picture of it and said there really was one. I said, yes, I know. I've actually been there.
So, you know the phrase "the devil into the details." These people have proven my counter phrase, which is "so are the fans."
Yep, and that's why I have the reputation that I do for writing accurate books.
How about you, Law Dog?
Well, the most recent will be the email I got exclaiming, I did a short story for it. It came from the trailer park. And
Yes.
I kind of got weird. And I got an email saying, I never ever thought I'd say this, but thank you for the interesting yet tasteful use of hentai in the trailer park.
Yeah, this is
Oh, dear heavens.
Yeah.
Can you say the name of where this story can be found again for anybody who is curious?
It came from the trailer park. And I think my story's midway through. It involves tasteful hentai, a hippie goblin commune, and gray aliens getting what's coming to them.
And it involves tentacle porn.
Hentai.
Yeah. I also have a story in that one.
Three Ravens Publishing actually is the one that published it.
Well, there you go, JR. You can go check it out.
I mean, I don't know what you think I do in my spare time, but that's not it.
Well, I don't know what it is you do with your spare time. Don't ask, don't tell. It's still in effect here.
Tasteful hentai.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll add that to the list of things that are on the maybe, probably, never list. All right, Doc. Are you done with your fandom questions? Have you gotten it all out of your system?
Never, but go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure you didn't want to add some on because I know this is important to you. All right, so this is the part of the interview where we talk about everything they have written. So starting with you, Jim, can you give us the Reader's Digest version of everything you've written?
Well, I've got the Gray Man series, which is 6 books, Cops versus Cartel Down on the Border, current fiction. Rimworld series, which is 3 books right now, probably 6 total in the end. Military science fiction. I just started an 1870s Western series called The Bell Chronicles. Got anthologies out called Cal Exit and Tales Around the Supper Table, and a second one of those coming in probably about 3 weeks. And the 4th Rimworld will be up by Christmas.
Woohoo!
An overachiever. I like it. All right. And what about you, Law Dog? What does your body of work look like?
I've got both Law Dog Files books out. I've got currently squabbling over getting my rights back. I've got multiple anthologies out and 3 works in progress.
All right. And while all of those sound fascinating, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll already see the book cover up. But today we're talking about the Can't Go Home Again anthology, which was revolves around the topic of PTSD and sort of those issues associated with. But Jim, what made you decide to participate in this anthology? Was it just generically you like those kinds of issues, or was there something specific?
I hope they've got time because I'm going to be talking for a while.
Basically, I got told I was writing a story.
That sounds like Cedar.
Well, you have to understand there are a number of us that get together every weekend over here for dinner on Saturday night. And the cooking rotates through, but I end up hosting it. So there have been now 2 anthologies, plus this one being the 3rd one, that have come out of our discussions around the supper table. So I was politely told I was going to write the story. So I did.
Okay.
And
that was efficient.
And now I will let Laudog talk for the next 20 minutes.
Oh, God, I won't talk quite that long. Critical incident stress and PTSD has been an interest of mine since 1997. I attended a Caliber Press speech revival seminar, and the second day of it was about critical incident stress. And I got very interested in it because we had a lot of folks, first responders have a lot of PTSD, and we were starting to get folks into the Audis from the military. Veterans are transferring over to first responders, and we're bringing their PTSD with them. Fast forward, I've been writing on my blog for a while, and out of the blue, I got email, which was kind of interesting because I hide the email on my blog. So if you actually find it, I figure you're dedicated enough, I might ought to read what you're emailing me. And it was from a therapist in Houston. And she opened by saying, "You realize you have a screaming case of PTSD, right?" And I kind of twitched this and sent back, "No, actually, I don't. When I got my psyche eval to be a peace officer, they cleared me, no PTSD." And she said, "I know who does those evals. He's a hack. You've got PTSD." All right. So I started looking at it, and but damned, I might have a little bit of just a little bit of PTSD. Well, come this year, and Cedar said, and then the way only Cedar can do, she said, "If you want to write a story, you can, but you don't have to," which meant, of course, I had to write a story.
Yep.
Sounds like Our Lady.
Yeah. And that was one of the rougher stories I've written.
Yeah, these kind of stories can take it out of you. So I get that.
When I finish writing, I usually do a once over to knock the edges off and clear up the gaping holes, misspellings and double words and everything. I got done with that one, banged it off to Cedar and said, "I can't reread this. Clear anything that's obvious error and go."
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So normally we would take a second to talk about the cover, but we got the lady that created the cover in the last interview. So if you really want to hear that, check out that last interview. But it is amazing. It fits exactly what the story is trying to do. So we will move on because we're an hour in and we've got more stories to tell. So Doc, well, you know what? First, let me read the blurb for the anthology. We did not have that last time because it wasn't out yet. But men and women who lay their life on the line never escape unscathed. And when the time comes to return home, they find a wall between them and loved ones. These tales follow those who gather the hope of being healed and tearing down those walls that have sprung up between them and their loved ones. No one ever said it would be easy. I actually think there's a song that said it best called Memoirs of Ptsd. It was written through a therapy program, but they told you how to wear the uniform. They never told you how to take it off.
Yep.
That just basically sums up what the goal of this was, to try to help people figure out. So Doc, let's dive into the first set of stories because they each wrote one, and you get to ask Mr. Curtis about his story.
Okay, so what was your story titled, Jim?
Why
are you looking at me?
Home for Christmas.
Home for Christmas. Okay. So what was the basic synopsis of your short story for those who haven't read it yet?
It's a Vietnam veteran father, basically PBR skipper in Vietnam as an ensign, retired as a captain, has 2 adopted sons. One goes in the Marine Corps, one goes in the Navy.
So which one was his daughter?
Didn't have a daughter.
Oh, you missed the bad joke.
So they both go into combat. They both lose people. And they come home for Christmas. And by this point, the old man is out and retired. And he finally tells them what their names are based on. And those are the people that he lost off his PBR in Vietnam.
That's pretty heavy. So, well,
And his wife helped him get through the PTSD and became a counselor in Norfolk. So she talks to the boys' wives, and they agree to work together to more or less bring them home. Because one of the big fears of the military is, and even back in our day, was that if you went to psych, you were in trouble.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I think as much as the Army has tried to work past that stigma, I think it's still a stigma today.
Yeah.
Well, if you were an aviator and you went to a psych, you were immediately grounded forever.
So, yeah, there's a couple other branches where it has a history of causing issues, like similar.
Yeah.
So what was your inspiration behind this story?
A friend of mine who was actually a PBR skipper in Vietnam that I worked with, and something very similar happened to him. So I just basically scrubbed the serial numbers off and expanded a little bit.
So,
because I knew people that were coming back from the Gulf, and I was over there doing some stuff. So I had some pretty good feedback from folks that were boots on the ground over there.
Yeah. So I know Cedar talked about this is a very genre fluid anthology, not even every story is what we'd consider speculative fiction. So does this story fit into a larger universe?
It probably could, but I wouldn't write that.
Okay. That is totally legitimate. So a fun one kind of for the road is if you could live, well, we have lived in this world. JR, these questions really don't apply. So your turn.
In my defense, In my defense, I didn't know what kind of stories they were because it was possible they could all go everywhere.
Well, yeah, everything Cedar had told us, everything in this is really, if you're listening to this and all of these stories can really, there is something literally for everybody in this anthology. Not everything is speculative fiction.
Cedar pounded it into my little head that the common thread was hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
every story.
I actually resonate with that. My youngest son is named after my best friend who didn't come home. So
yeah,
I can really relate to that.
Yeah.
So the wow, that's heavy. So you thought you were out of the hot seat, but Law Dog, you get to go next. So what was your story titled?
Memories Like Dust.
All right, and what would be the basic synopsis of this short story?
The basic synopsis is a Afghani vet now working for a small sheriff's office who had survived a IED attack on a vehicle. Comes across a car accident. A drunk driver caused car accident, killing a girl and badly injuring another one, and he's having to save her. And it kicks him off into an anxiety attack that he doesn't recognize. And it's about the distancing from society and the overwhelming feelings of failure that build up that aren't actually there, and ends up with you need to find. It's difficult. It ends up with you know it's okay to look for help, and there's a lot of stuff in it. It was based off of a lot of things. One was an Afghani vet that was one of my kids. I was a lieutenant, and he was one of my corporals in the sheriff's office. And I went outside one day doing something, and he was sitting on a curb by his vehicle, and he was full on freaked out. And I pulled the anxiety from my studies and from similar episodes I've had. The human brain is actually an advanced, enlarged nasal organ. Sense of smell is very basic to the human animal. And I kicked off every part of the character's attacks were kicked off by smells. And then I had the PTSD whispering to him from the shadows. And it's a rough one.
So this sounds like this was also much like the gyms. This was also set in modern times. So I'm going to assume that that those questions don't apply for you either.
It's post Afghanistan. I didn't put a date or anything on it. I wanted anybody reading it, any modern veteran reading it, to be able to apply it. So I didn't put any. It's just post Afghanistan.
The sense of smell is huge. Like I can't smell bacon. I'll eat it, but I can't be around cooking bacon because it smells like cooking other things.
Yep.
And so I get that. In fact, one of the first coping strategies they gave us at the VA when I was first taken to the residential psych facility when I first got home. Well, when I first got diagnosed and sobered up, was they keep candles around because the scent of lavender, for whatever reason, has a calming effect. So you'll never find me without a lavender candle nearby for those very reasons. It's because smell is such a huge trigger for people.
Well, the one of the coping mechanisms that he's dealing with, or that he uses, is a cigar, because the smell of cigar, reminds him of celebrations.
Yeah, I can see that definitely.
As long as it's not one of them.
All right.
Damn peyote cigars.
The only thing I miss about my time in Iraq is we used to get the Cuban cigars over there dirt cheap because there was no embargo between.
Yeah, but they were shit cigars. They weren't the good ones.
They were.
JR standards are low. How many times do I have to tell you guys?
Well, actually, the cigars my character's smoking are Cohibas.
Yeah.
So the guy outside of Scania was able to get you some good stuff. I don't know what truck it fell off the back of, but they were labeled Cuban, and it was good. And I just didn't ask any questions.
Nope.
I actually bought a humidor for while I was over there that I kept in my wall locker that I still have. That's just all the writing on it is in Arabic. At some point in time, I imagine I'll pass it down to my sons because I don't actually smoke anymore. Having an asthmatic wife will cure you of that addiction.
Oh, yes.
So, but yeah, I could definitely appreciate the value of a fine cigar.
Well, so you had one advantage that we didn't have, JR. You got it documented and you got treatment. We came back from Vietnam, we didn't get shit.
Well,
this is true. They learned
one of the male things, one of the male laws, and I don't disagree with it, is handle your shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree that a man should handle his shit. However, that doesn't mean that if you can't handle it, you can't ask for help. And too many veterans, too many first responders won't ask for help.
Oh yeah.
Well, here's the thing though, and I doubly got this dose because of being both a medic and a soldier. So it was definitely like, you need to handle your shit because you got to take care of everybody else's.
Mhm.
Sometimes handling your shit is asking for help.
Exactly. Yeah. Doesn't mean you can't have other people help you. And that's something I briefly touch on. I used to teach a class on critical incident stress. And I used to, if you don't take anything else from this class, understand that physical injury, physical trauma, if you break a leg, you go get treatment, it hurts. Somebody treats you, you take medicine for it, it gets better. It will hurt every now and then from then on, but you're okay.
Yeah.
There is no difference between physical trauma and mental, emotional, psychic trauma. You're hurt. Somebody's going to have to help you, because just like if you don't get help for the broken leg, if you don't get help for the broken psyche, you ain't going to heal right.
Yep.
Somebody needs to help you, and understand that there's going to be times in the future when it's going to pop up again, but it will get better. It may take a while, you'll backslide, but you're going to get better.
And that's one of the reasons that those of us that were Vietnam vets showed up at airports when y'all came back from the Gulf.
Yeah.
We wanted you to know you were being met by people.
I think I remember during, what was it called? It was after 9/11. There was a point where people were feeling very frustrated, and it was one of the greatest things. It was, these people deserve your support, even if you don't agree with what the government is having them do. Because unfortunately, once you join, you don't have an option about what you do much after that.
We were getting spit on coming back from Vietnam.
I know.
We were getting fake blood or sheep's blood thrown on us going through the airports.
And
People are dickheads.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Luckily, I
It used
think
to be a people person, and then people ruined it.
Yeah, they keep doing that.
Bastard-coated bastards with crunchy bastard filling.
Yep.
Yeah, just as long as they don't make a mess and
All right. Enough on that one.
bleed on my good carpets. We're good.
All right. So clearly, before we get to too tipsy or too honest, clearly this interview is winding down. But before we wrap this up, was there anything about the Can't Go Home Again anthology that we didn't ask that you want to tell us about, Jim?
I think if you don't like all the stories, that's fine. But please read both the forward and the afterword, because Dorothy Grant put some nice words in the afterword about books that both men and women can read, that she has found to be successful dealing with Peter. And if nothing else, that's a takeaway.
Peter's case of PTSD makes mine look mild.
Yeah. I allude to those books in my story, but I don't name them because I knew they were going to be named later. But what we're trying to do is give people a positive avenue to get help or to know that there's a way out. Regardless of what you did in the military, from boot camp on, it's going to change you. And that's probably the hardest thing for families to understand. Even when you come home from boot camp, you're a different person.
Well, even in military families, I mean, my mom's an Army brat, and I came home a different person. And you would think, being an Army brat, she'd get it, especially because her father went to Nam. You'd get it. And she talked about how he didn't come back the same person. But no, it's still different.
A lot of chups left in the jungle.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, we wrote this for people with PTSD because to this day, even though we're really trying, we really are, there's still a stigma attached. You've got PTSD, oh my God, you know, oh my, holy shit, he's got PTSD. There's still a stigma attached. So, we wrote stories with the thread of hope, but also it's not just for the vets. I wrote a story to let people who've never had an anxiety attack know what one feels like. If you know somebody with PTSD, they might not want to read the story, the anthology, and that's fine. Their family might get something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family might get some understanding.
That first, if you've never had a panic attack, a true panic attack, you don't know what it is. I was really lucky. I was around a friend when I had one of my a super bad one for the first time. And she goes, you're not dying. It's okay. And I'm like, I didn't say I was dying. She's like, stop it. Breathe. So it can be hard.
I go into attack mode and I can't get out of it. And that really sucks.
All right, that it does, but therapy's out there. So the Veterans Administration has places, the Vet Center,
Therapy's
Mission
out
22.
there.
There's a bunch.
Friends
There's a
are
bunch of
out
places
there
to get help,
too.
even some churches, but the solution is rarely at the bottom of a bottle. So get help.
Not at the bottom of the bottle, and it is nothing permanent.
You will get better. It may take a while, and you're going to backslide, but you're going to get better. I promise.
Yeah.
So before we let you go, dear listener, I'd like to harken back to our original podcast that you OG types might remember, but I'll assume you're here because you're readers as well as fans of the genre. So after you're finished reading these great, amazing, awesome books, please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right reader find the right books. So do your thing, people. And I hear at the 100th review, the author gets a really cool unicorn. And I happen to know that Jim would like to know what a unicorn steak tastes like. So do it for him. Do it for Jim. All right. I had to lighten the mood a little bit.
It's going to have to go some to beat better than Kobe steak in Japan.
I just want elk.
And now I feel like a road trip is in order so we can try all the steaks and figure out which one is the steak.
Yes, so please make sure you support the podcast.
Yeah,
so
you folks do a
Jim,
good job.
Thank you. So Jim, J.L. Curtis, as his publishing name is, how can listeners and viewers find you?
Yeah. Do I really want to know?
Again, you're looking at me.
oldnfo.org is my blog. That also has a link to my books. They can find me on Amazon under J.L. Curtis. And I'm on Facebook as Jim Curtis. And I don't do Twitter. I don't do much of that crap. I do MeWe. Again, Jim Curtis. And that's about it. And then a few of us do I have a YouTube channel, OLDNFO. We do a live stream a couple times a week, which usually goes even further off the rails than this interview did.
It doesn't even start on the rails.
Well, we're a block from the rails, so we're close.
Yeah.
Anyway, I enjoy hearing from readers. I do appreciate the feedback. And I will echo what JR said about please give us honest reviews. That is critical. And 50 and 100 reviews on Amazon are really breakpoints for the books to succeed. So that's all I've got.
All right. What about you, Log? How can they find you on the wild interwebs?
Yeah. I've got a blog for certain reasons. I can't blog at it much right now. That'll change in the future. My Amazon page is D Lawdog because Amazon is stupid and won't take metronyms. I've got a Lawdog page at Facebook. That's my public page. And I have an Ian McMurtry page for folks that I've met. If I don't know you, you send me a friend, I don't know you, and I won't. And there's a lot of privacy.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I can appreciate that.
Say again?
I said I can really appreciate that.
Yeah. Other than that, find me at a con.
Yeah.
I do Liberty Con whenever they're in the paint. I'll do Liberty Con. Looks like I'm getting dragged to TollCon in Tulsa this year. And I usually let folks know which cons they'll go to. And if you don't mind scraping me off the ceiling after introducing yourself, I'm okay. Now, I'm usually 2 cocktails deep before we do the no shit there I was panel at LibertyCon. Seriously, because in front of that many people, I can't talk unless I'm 2 cocktails deep.
I think 90% of the room is at least 2 cocktails deep.
Yeah, but not
Just saying.
Not out of a sense of self-preservation.
Yeah, they don't let us Navy folks on that panel. We have to do our own panel later at night.
Yeah.
That's because you're all seamen.
Bad.
And on that happy joke, you can find us, dear listener, on our Twitter at SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email the show at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group where all the shenanigans happen over at facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Be sure to comment when we post it on any questions you have, and we'll make sure they see it to answer. We also appreciate the feedback. If there's things you want to see or books you'd like us to review, that's the place to do it, or the email, of course. We have our website, which is anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. You can support the show over on anchor.fm as well, where you could set up a monthly recurring payment, much like a Patreon model. Again, that's anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Or you can support the show on a one-time basis at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep Doc Cisca and Nick Garber duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders.
Never surrender, never quit.
She would have said that sooner, but she's already intoxicated because you guys were nice to us in season 1. All right, Doc, bring us home.
Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber, J.R. Handley, and myself, please, if you're having any of these issues, reach out. Find somebody to reach out to. If nothing else, you can reach out to one of us because we do understand this issue. Mental health is important, and that is my public service announcement. On to the rest of the list, where I get to razz JR because he loves pineapple on pizza but is in denial. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast, where we indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, torturing JR, pineapple on pizza, and of course all things sci-fi and fantasy and anything that goes boom.
All right, and on that note, she's wrong. Pineapple on pizza is Harris.
Pineapple on pizza is great.
Disagree.
Oh, it's not.